guys, this is Cam Hill. How are you on the Cam Hill Show? What's up? We have one of the best in the world, Donald J. PLINER. He is the designer of men's and women's shoes. Let's look at see who is Donald J. PLINER.
I'm Donald PLINER, and I design shoes for men and women. But I think most important about design, I design comfort and the technology to make my designs and then make them fashionable. Actually, I started where I opened up my first retail store in Beverly Hills. It was 43 years ago. And I used to go to the factories and I would say, change this, so I didn't even realize I was designing in those days. So in theory, other than my own brand, I had my own stores and I had all clothing and I was designing. So I've probably been designing really for maybe about 30-some years. It's so competitive. I lost 3 times in my life, everything to the bare bone, and I never believed that the word no existed. People always ask, what is the process that I go through for creating a shoe or creating a design? And what happens, I basically only get about 3 to 4 weeks to do it. And what I'll do, and I'll give you an example, we're just showing fall 2011. I would have walked in the stores in fall of 2010, go into the stores, go into restaurants, go into clubs and see what people are wearing. What did I have in the stores in 2010 and what I didn't have, to try to get ideas. I have a history of a library of books, materials, and I go through it, and eventually some way, I don't know how, because each show and each is like it's like going on Broadway. It's like it's like starting from scratch. And somehow, thank God, it comes together. The first thing that's different between myself and other designers is that I'm still a retailer at heart, so I look at it from a different point of view. I'm also lucky that I have different places that I live, so I can see, you don't get caught just in New York, you don't get caught just in Los Angeles. And I actually design my fall collection in Los Angeles and my spring collection in Miami. Women are interesting because a woman can go in a store and they can see what something looks like on a hanger, where a man has to physically try it on. So my wife's point of views are always, she's a tremendous inspiration. I mean, there's a lot of designers out there, but I think my real inspiration comes from my wife. One of the things I'm known for is elastics, or we call microfiber. I run every day and I exercise every day, so I'm aware of what it's like to wear with a pair of sneakers versus shoes. Also knowing the fact today, the economics of the world, sometimes we're waking up in the morning, going right from morning, noon to night. We never get a chance to change. And so what you have to wear is something that's gonna make you feel good, comfortable with, but also feel strong about yourself. That's what I try to do with my designs. I like working, as I started saying about exercise, I work with a lot of elastics. They're called microfibers, and a lot of people aren't aware of it. But microfiber today is more expensive than leather. If you think of your luggage today, your briefcases, you get microfiber because it's more durable and it's stronger. So where I said earlier that I run, all my shoes somewhere have elasticity somewhere. So knowing these things, I have to work with materials that become adaptable to the comfort level. So elastics, soft nappas. I also work a lot with hair calf, and we're known for our cowhide prints, leopard prints, and I come up with my fantasies. I also do a lot of things now in these, what's called hand beaded. The hardest customer of all is men. It's because they only wear a certain shoe, they only wear a certain thing this is all they want. 60% of men's shoes are bought by women. And once men get into my shoes, there's no turning back. I mean, it's unbelievable. But, people just try them on, don't just look at them, try them on. I have a 6-year-old and I have a little 9-year-old dog, and I have my wife. And as I said, I travel about 225 nights a year. It's a major balancing act. I basically work till like 3, 4 in the morning. And I don't really start work until 9, 10 o'clock, till everybody goes to sleep. It's hard, and time is our most precious commodity. That's my biggest design that I'm going to have for myself personally, is to figure out how I'm going to have time to design to be with my family. Adopting a child out of Kazakhstan was very emotional. We actually started a foundation called Peace for the Children because of that. You start realizing children are probably our most important commodity. This is what peace is about, it's through communication. And what we do, practically all of our shoes have peace signs somewhere. We donate a percentage to our foundation, and we've started building parks. People say, why parks? our playgrounds, our communication. It's for obesity, it's health, it's to take care of children. It's just, as I said, peace comes from the children first, and that's what Peace for the Children is.
You just heard Donald J. Pliner. Hey, my friend, how you doing?
Okay. It's very interesting when you listen to the video because it's 6 years ago. So my daughter's a little bit older now. I guess
Ab-
so am I.
Absolutely.
But so much has changed, but it's quite a long path, and the
Wow.
path is only beginning all the time.
Donald, we just looked
So
at that and just knowing who you are and all that you have done. First of all, you don't ever age. I don't know what's up with that.
well,
You never age. I don't know. I don't know what's in the drink you've been drinking or water or whatever. You just never age.
I guess I'll be 77 this year. So
No way.
it's but I guess it's exercise and it's just passion for what you do, and you don't think about it. But
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
put some cream on my face.
I love your one of the mottos that you said on here. It says, "When the feet are comfortable, so are the mind, body, and the soul." What did you mean by that?
Well, the first thing you put on is your feet.
Mm-hmm.
And if your feet are uncomfortable, so
Yes.
is the rest of the body, and as one of my customers said, so is the soul.
Yeah.
Um, it's so, I first of all, I went to college for 5.5 years to try to avoid the Vietnam War, and I ended up taking art history and painting
Mm-hmm.
as my main course. And one of the most important things I had was anatomy and portraiture. And
Mm-hmm.
in anatomy, Picasso can put his left arm on the right side. In portraiture, for example, if you look at a Monet painting, there's the whole audience, there's the orchestra pit, the dancers, and your eye has to constantly flow to be a portrait.
Mm-hmm.
If you, and that's part of the thing. So when I design shoes or clothing, it's always the anatomy, how everything fits, and the
Mm-hmm.
portrait that the shoes go on the feet, but they have to also go all the way up the body so the body feels comfortable. So what I've said, when the feet are comfortable, so is the body, so is the mind, and as the customer says, so is the soul, and that's the most important thing is comfort. And I think that's something that unfortunately in a lot of shoes or a lot of things, comfort has been taken away, except of course sneakers have taken over. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why sneakers took over is because of comfort. And it's that's what I really do. I got out of the army in '66, and I maybe missed since '66 maybe 3 or 4 days a year that I don't exercise. Walk, run, weights, everything, and it's always about comfort. I mean, even those shoes that you're looking at,
Mm-hmm.
there's a zipper. I mean, this is just there's that's like a little arcade of some of the shoes I've done. From the leatherware, from men's, women's. I mean, those are some of the leather jackets. And what I used to do on the leatherware, everything I made, and the leatherware was made in Italy. It was called Made in the Streets of Italy, and it was the same factory as Christian Lacroix and Christian Dior. And everything I made for two-legged, we also made for four-legged, and had a whole baby doll collection. It was
Mm-hmm.
called Friends of Baby Doll.
I see. I see.
Um, and that was one of my first dog.
Uh-huh.
So we had all the leatherware, but in the shoes, and even you
Right.
can see
Yes.
it's a left and a right.
Yes.
Um, but it's all about comfort, and everything I do is just comfort.
Yes.
Especially today, we're running, we're walking, we're waking up,
Mm-hmm.
and we used to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, we'll all be going back to work. So it's just important about, sometimes we wake up, we go to work, we go evening, we have lunch and dinner or whatever it is, and we don't come home, and we have to make sure we're wearing the same shoes and they're always comfortable.
I love the way you've
But what I
traveled
did,
around the world and actually found many products around the world in putting into the shoes, or how you looked at the shoes, where you went, what you were looking, what people were wearing at the time. You just didn't look in the United States. You looked around the world to see what they were wearing also.
Right. I mean, I would go in a restaurant and I'd see something.
Yes.
I mean, it could be a bottle, and I think, okay, let's make that bottle. Or I'd see, color and shape. Color
Mm-hmm.
to me, I used to, when I designed my collection, I did my colors first,
Mm-hmm.
then my materials, and then the designs. And that was part of the architecture of my designing shoes, where some people
Right.
just design the shoe. I start from the color and then the materials.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
everything, when I do the story, each collection has a complete story. It has a whole reason from the very beginning. For all the shoes, there's a story behind it. It was either, as I said, a lot of times with my wife, we'd be traveling, we'd see things,
Mm-hmm.
and like that little tartan collection, everybody was wearing tartan that day when we were in England, so we did
Mm-hmm.
the tartan. A lot of my shoes have skulls,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason is when we unfortunately lost our child and we ended up adopting. And when we brought our child back, Star Emmanuel, which is Emmanuel means and pray within God, and star, of course, for the stars, we had to go to get her.
Mm-hmm.
But she was barely 10 months old. We took her over to the Children's Museum, and she was barely walking, and she learned to walk immediately because children learn from one another.
Right.
Her best girlfriend was black, and prejudice comes within, and it still does, obviously. And one of the things we did, we started a foundation called Peace for the Children. And the whole
Yes.
idea is when children, and it's also people, when people learn to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
there's peace.
Yes.
And that's why I do skulls, not to show that when you don't talk and you argue, you end up being a skull as a body.
Wow.
So I do skulls for communication, for peace. And
Mm.
everything we do, as I said, there's a foundation, and everything it's in my emails and everything else. If you don't communicate, there's no peace, there's no success.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
that's unfortunately is what's happened in our world today more so, is the lack of communication that has happened in the past that destroyed that, and hopefully this is all going to change.
Oh yeah.
We need to change. We need to talk. We need to be open to what's happening.
We do. We really do. We need to be open. You're right about that. Your foundation, and it says, even when we were looking at it, we see peace signs on a lot of your products.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to. Lisa just showed me something.
Okay.
Um, this is Lisa does a lot of skulls. We're having a gallery,
Yes.
and every one of them is all
Oh,
done by hand. This
wow.
this takes months. Um, but my wife is going to say something real quickly.
I'm not really dressed.
She's not really dressed.
I have therapy, but anyway, I just wanted to mention that the skull
Hey,
really
Lisa.
no longer. Hi,
Okay, Lisa is Donald's wife.
hi guys. I'm
Yeah.
not really dressed, but anyway, excuse me. But one of the things I took for the skulls was because skulls. Donald did so many skulls on his designs. I really was doing one just to surprise him and it just turned out to be one thing led to another, led to another. But in my research and really also doing about skulls is skulls are really no longer about evil and death, and it
Yeah.
really means that you live your life to the fullest.
Mm.
So as Donald puts a skull on each shoe, I mean technically these his Donald's life of who he is I think it's a connection to his shoe of how, the skull is live your life to the fullest. Go live out and wear these shoes. Don't be ashamed.
Oh,
I
So,
love
I
it.
want Lisa to take off her shoe for a second.
You want her to you want to see,
She's going to
we
take
want to
off
see
her
her
shoe.
shoe. Okay.
Um,
on the whole
I just want to show
thing
you.
today.
This is I was talking about microfiber,
Right.
and this is microfiber.
Wow.
And we see it in different versions, and you can see I even put like different bottoms on them,
Right.
and everything is flex.
Yes.
Everything has a complete orthotic in the shoe.
Wow.
So
Yes.
all about about comfort.
Comfort. Comfort.
And one of the things the shoe I'm wearing.
Uh-huh.
Because unfortunately, when I sold the company, I sold my name,
Uh-huh.
and so one of my email is called incognito, and you'll see that now here's a skull and he's wearing sunglasses because I'm incognito.
You ain't cut.
And
Let's see that
this
shoe
is
again.
actually this was like spiritual. The material was
Yes.
from India, and anyway, also the influence of traveling to Morocco, and which is a lot of the influence in my shoes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But everything has a story,
Yes.
and it's a
Yes, yes.
story for love and life and success.
You were gonna show us how you started out making a shoe. Let's show the pattern. How you start with your pattern.
Okay, so I designed the shoe, and now
Yes.
these are on the beaded shoes.
Okay.
So the pattern has to make, and the pattern is for the size.
Yes.
So every size has to be made one by one. So the pattern is made, the size, it goes to India. And I don't know if you can see all of this.
Yes, there it is. Yes.
Um, each, this is 40 hours of hand bead work to make
Wow.
this. And then it goes back to Italy,
Uh-huh.
and then it's blasted, and it becomes a shoe.
Wow. So
This is a
those,
left
so the
and
pattern that you just had, that is the shoe. This is the
that is the
results of the
shoe.
shoe.
And even we had a gallery for a while
Mm-hmm.
and made pillows.
Yes.
That's 200 hours of hand bead work.
Wow.
And that's the same as the shoe. I mean, there's behind me, there's, whoops, more pillows.
Right. Yes.
I'm just reaching over. all of all of these were shoes.
Right. I saw the shoes. Yes.
And I just dropped a bag, which is very funny.
Of shoes.
Um, this was, I don't know if you can see this.
Yep. Okay.
My,
There you go. Put it over. Okay. There you go. We can see it. Okay.
okay.
Yes.
That was one of my first shopping bags when I opened up Right Bank in the 70s. And, you know, everybody used to wear their label. So I said, okay, let's put your label on the outside.
Right.
And there it is where it says made in Italy. That's the actual sweater. That's me. But that was just, my shopping bags were absolutely unbelievable. I mean,
I see this one. Look at that shopping bag. Yes.
This was friends of Baby Doll. So she had her own shopping bag. She had her own collection.
Mm-hmm.
But we won so many awards in advertising. And every year I changed the shopping bag so they'd be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
The shoes, everything had a reason. Everything had a story. And it
Right.
was just, you know, one of the best things was when I used to do personal appearances. I mean, I love being out in front of people because people want to talk, and I like to talk to them. And you know, it's unbelievable. Like Amelia and everybody like this, the people that would come and gather, and I had customers that I know would come in and say, "Oh, here's my shoe. It's 10 years old. It's 20. Can't you repair it? Can I do something about it?" And the problem with my shoes was the fact, first was the number one thing was comfort,
Mm-hmm.
followed by the quality and then the design. And one of the things about my shoes, they never really went out of style. They were always fashionable. The only thing about my shoes, they sometimes lasted too long.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, when they last that long, then you don't want to buy a new pair. But everything I did, from my clothing to my shoes to my life, was always based on quality and based on comfort and the ability of just loving life itself. The only problem was I never realized who I was or what I did. In fact, when I sold my business in 2011. I started it. What's more important, at least for Donald PLINER, my first store was in the 67, was a shop in Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
I had went to college for 5.5 years, ending up at the University of Chicago in the Art Institute, even went to school in Italy, and then hitchhiked for over a year all over Europe, North Africa. Then I got a letter from Uncle Sam and said, "Hey, we want you to come back here. We got an army university to go to."
That's
And
too
I said
funny.
no, so I joined the National Guard to avoid it. And finally, I just couldn't get out. And a gentleman from New York who worked for my brother said, "You want to open up a store in Beverly Hills, San Francisco?" I said, "Sure, I have nothing else better to do." And that's how I opened up my first store in '67 in Beverly Hills. And I remember I had a brand new Volkswagen convertible, and all my belongings was in that car. And I
Wow.
drove from Chicago to Beverly Hills, and it was very interesting. You know, on Route 66, and if you're going 60 miles an hour in a Volkswagen, and as the hill goes up, you're going 60, 40, 20. And I
Wow.
remember I got so excited. I got to Las Vegas. I said, "God, I'm making good time." I didn't realize it was Las Vegas in New Mexico. And
So
then,
Donald,
you know, these,
before you finish that one, hold that thought,
yes.
and we'll be right back. We're going to take a break.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. For a limited time, get $16,000 off all in-stock Cadillac 2019 XT5 crossovers and $19,000 off all in-stock 2019 CT6 sedans. Or experience the first ever 2020 Cadillac XT6 Premium Luxury Collection, only $519 with $1 down for 39 months lease. Or purchase and receive 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
When it comes to protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. Drive the new 2020 Cadillac XT4, only $399 a month, or the new 2020 XT5, only $429 a month, both for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Or purchase the XT4 or XT5 and enjoy 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, truck accident, car accident? Was someone texting and ran into the back of you, not paying attention? It doesn't matter what it is. Give me a call, Attorney Willie Powles. We'll fix it today. The number is 281-881-2457. Again, that number is 281-881-2457. We'll fix it today. Call Attorney Willie Powles.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, we are back. We were listening to Donald J. PLINER. Hey, my friend, let's pick up where we left off. You were on Chicago Freeway.
Well, yeah, I went from Chicago to Los Angeles. What's also interesting, my family, my father was in the shoe business. He opened up his first store, himself and his uncle.
Yeah.
In fact, they were all what was in those days was called the Black Belts of Chicago.
Yes.
And it was PLINER Forsham shoes. So I learned how to sell shoes when I was a kid. I guess some people are born with a silver spoon. I was born with a slipper spoon, which is
a slipper spoon.
So it's basically, it was like somewhat of my beginnings of how the shoe business. And I remember one thing, particularly in the stores, and it's also as interesting, my father opened up in the height of the Depression, and to have air conditioning, you had a fan with a bucket of ice in front of it.
Right, you telling us.
That's what the store was. But anyway, in the store, he had what you do, you used to put your feet underneath like a periscope, and you look through it, and the customer would see it, and then the seller would see it, and you know how the shoes fit exactly. So comfort was like very important, but unfortunately the x-rays, they had to take it away. So anyway, I'm driving on Route 66. I get to Las Vegas. I'm very excited. Then I realized it was in New Mexico. And if you know anything about Los Angeles, I finally see sunset. And I said, okay, I'm finally here in LA. And this is like 4 days later. And I get off on Sunset, and I didn't realize I get off in San Bernardino. San Bernardino from Los Angeles is about an hour and a half or so. And I'm driving on Sunset, And that's how I first got to Los Angeles. And I opened up my first store, and it was really quite incredible that in order to work there, your family had to be someone famous. Like I had Jaja Gabor's daughter, I had James Arness, and it was really it was like a living room. In fact, one of the key things about the store, which I used for 6 of my other stores, was my dressing room was octagonal in shape, wall, floor, and ceiling all mirror. And like I cannot tell you like how many magazines were in there. Like people would come in, go in there, they would never come out. Some people were afraid to go in. But I always remember one time I was waiting on a customer because it was really busy, and I asked the lady, "How do you want to pay for it?" She said, "It's a house charge." I said, "Okay, what's your name?" It was Elizabeth Taylor, and I had no idea.
You didn't have any idea that was Elizabeth Taylor.
No. But you know, in all of my stores, because especially after I sold Papagallo, I opened up a store called Right Bank right next door, and then I had 2 on Rodeo and 1 on Camden. And 65% of my business was the entertainment industry because I had one of the most expensive men's and women's shoes and clothing. But no matter who the customer was, no one, we were never allowed to say anything to the customer. Every customer was treated the same way, no matter who they were. And it was like, I remember one time I had an associate from New York who was trying to buy into the company, and he said, "Can I come in the store?" And I let him come in the store, and he said, "Oh," and I forgot who came in, and he said, "Oh, can I go talk to this person?" I said, "Absolutely not." You know, and it's like, I remember Tina Turner sometimes used to come in near the end of the day, and she would start singing, and she was just fabulous. Elton John in the 70s, when I used to have the most magnificent furs for women and sunglasses, and he would come in and spend maybe $30,000 a month in just furs and sunglasses. I mean, up until just recently, I used to make shoes for him. He used to come to see the collection, particularly on the beaded shoes, and buy 10, 15, order 10, 15 pair. In fact, we made 1 pair for him that had the initials of his 2 kids, so at the left and the right of the shoe. So we had, you know, was specially made in the beaded. It didn't really matter who it was. I mean,
Right.
Bianca Jagger used to buy 2 of everything, 1 for Beverly Hills and 1 for New York. It was really quite a fascination. I mean, the store itself, particularly the one in Beverly Hills on Rodeo, was a glass atrium like this.
Right.
And upstairs on the mezzanine had an English tea room, so you could actually see the Hollywood sign. And one of the biggest agents would come into the store all the time, and like Ally McGraw, Barbara Streisand, everybody would her name was Sue Mangers, everybody would come there for lunch to make deals upstairs in the tea room. And the block over, there was on Beverly Drive, was a restaurant called Nate and L's, which was a big deli, and that's where all the men would go. So the women would come there, and then I had a men's store right next door. And I had the 3 locations, and every day I walked 3 times, 4 times. I was in every store at least a half an hour to an hour, 3 times a day.
Wow.
And to work with customers and work with my customers. And, you know, no one was ever able to say anything other than comfort, try on, let them see it. You know, and one of the things that I always used to ask my customers, I would say to them when they're trying something on, particularly on shoes, I said, when you put your pants on or something, and they said, "What are you asking me? Did you put your left leg on or your right leg?" And sometimes they didn't know, and sometimes they actually had an answer. Yes, I knew what I did. But I said, in the end, you put your left and your right on. So when you try on the shoes in my store, you have to put the left and the right on, which is the biggest problem most people do. They try shoes on, they put a half a pair on, and then they get home and they don't realize it. I make sure that the customer walks actually on the floor.
Right.
And I'll tell them, go do a little dance. And I said, okay, now you got them dirty. Now you got to buy them. But I had a fit model that traveled with me all over in Italy and Spain, and sometimes a little bit in China. And she would have to walk up 2 flights of stairs and walk back down 2 flights of stairs to make sure, because when they stay on the feet, and to have to wear certain shoes for an hour. And I used to make all the men's shoes in my size, so the fact that I'd be able to wear them all the time and know exactly how they fit. So everything I did was about fit and the quality of the shoes. But you know, it was about service. You go into my stores and everybody was just really pleasant. I mean, you know, you offer your coffee, you offer water.
Yes.
On Saturdays, it was always martini days in the stores. It was
Yes.
always a special martini, and it didn't matter. Everybody, a little bit of alcohol in one's body sort of soothes everybody a little bit. They buy a little bit more. But the stores architecturally were all excellent. That mirror dressing room I was talking about, I
Mm-hmm.
had that in 6 of my stores. And the picture where we first started, actually, that was the showroom in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and it was on Fifth Avenue between 57th and 58th on the 25th floor with a terrace on the front and on the side. On 58th was a terrace, and as well as Fifth Avenue. And I always remember we were there the night before 9/11,
Mm-hmm.
and we were there for
Wow.
a fashion show. Unfortunately, the weather was really horrible, so
Mm-hmm.
the plane really landed very, very late, and so the fact we didn't see the fashion show. And I remember that morning, that Tuesday morning, I'm exercising, and all of a sudden, I turn the television. My office calls me and says, "The women are freaking out." And what's going on? And I turn the television on and I see what's happening to the first tower and then eventually the second tower.
Right.
And the, and actually, so they went home, but I always remember that was Tuesday. On Wednesday, um, and this is now 57th, 58th, and Fifth Avenue. And
Mm-hmm.
on Wednesday, the winds had changed, and all of a sudden you can smell the death in the air, what happened. I mean, there wasn't, and the
Wow.
streets were like, unfortunately, if you were not there, you really never saw how it really was. But the airy thing about it, the hardest thing was we'd be in a restaurant uptown and you'd be eating, and just 4 or 5 miles down, it was like destructive. And we were supposed to leave on a Wednesday, and because of the whole situation, we were never allowed to get out. And we finally, my wife and I were able to go back to Miami on Saturday. And I remember I was at LaGuardia Airport, and it
Mm.
was like 4 or 5 o'clock, and we're sitting in the lounge, and all of a sudden I look out and I see the skyline of New York, and as I turn, all of a sudden you see the smoke and everything, and how frightening it really was. And when you got on the plane, you could have dropped a needle and everybody would have heard it. I mean, it
Wow.
was like, it was more interesting when, then we landed in Miami and everybody's driving with flags, etc. And then a couple weeks later, in fact, I had to go to Las Vegas, which was like today, it was like it was empty. And when we got
Mm-hmm.
to Paris, and the whole city, you saw things, especially on the European stations, that
Mm-hmm.
they would show about 9/11 that Americans never saw, what really, some of the really horrible things that really happened about the people
Right.
jumping out the windows.
Right.
But so now we're in another situation, and
Pandemic. Yeah.
it's this whole thing with Black Lives Matter and what's going on. I think hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
especially, that we'll start appreciating what we had and what
Right.
we don't need anymore.
Right.
Um, and it's a big awakening, and my hardest awakening right now is I'm going through a period of time because I sold the business and then I started a new one,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately I started brand new in 2016, and I
Mm-hmm.
called it Right Bank, which was the name of the store. And because of the legal situation with the original Donald PLINER company that I sold to, every time I did something, I had press, and people would they would think that I was doing it. Blair Underwood was part of the collection at the very end, working with me on the men's.
Mm-hmm.
And we got all this press, but Donald PLINER company thought I was doing it, and the litigation just went on and on and on. And I finally had to close the business
Wow.
in 2018, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very difficult, I
Mm-hmm.
have to tell you,
Right.
especially putting all these shoes together and some of these pictures and realize my own talent, how much talent that I have, and just sitting.
You didn't know you were
Uh,
talented, huh?
I never, as I started telling you, I think I started with you earlier. I was talking about a ghostwriter that I sat
Right.
down with in 2015. And we sat down for half an hour to an hour, one day a week for 20 weeks. And I started from
Mm-hmm.
childhood. And
Yeah.
things that I realized, what I learned from my parents, from my father, my mother, which I tried to teach my daughter. And being 16, you can imagine what it's like,
Yes.
um, especially being quarantined. But,
Yes.
the things that I was taught, and I didn't realize so many things. It was like I was just telling the story how I left Chicago, had packed everything I owned in a Volkswagen convertible, opened up the store, then started another one. And then I had people all the time that were behind me. And even if I sold the business, no one cared if I made money or lost money. They just want to be on the train ride. They
Right.
just want to be part of Donald PLINER.
Wow.
And I think about all the things I did, the 6 stores I built, which architecturally were beautiful, my home, especially the one in Miami, the one here in LA, everything I did, and I had no idea of who I was or what I was able to do.
Wow.
And I did a prologue, and unfortunately it's still, the prologue's there. And hopefully one day someone's going to pick it up. It'll be a book, it'll be a movie about my whole life and what's going on. And there's some things going on, and hopefully I'll be able to go back in business, but I can't use my name. And it's a very hard thing. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that I did in life, which I think a lot of us do, we do it by the hip rather than by what we really should do and have really association. I never really had anybody that would say, do this properly or have a partner.
Right.
As I said, I had people that just couldn't care what I was doing. They just wanted to be on the train ride. And literally, I always thought that if I really wanted to, my influence was Giorgio Armani and Ralph Lauren.
Wow.
Because I felt what they did, and Calvin Klein a little bit, but more particularly Giorgio Armani and Ralph Lauren, to be able to, you go into their stores and it says Ralph Lauren, it says Giorgio, it says Armani, everything they do. And I remember at one time when I sold the business, and I had a gentleman who took over as the president, and he said to me, "Well, where are you getting your ideas from?" I said, "My ideas they come right from here, from my hands, my mind."
Yes.
I don't have to copy something to get an idea.
Right.
And, as I said, I realized it's like if you saw a Louboutin shoe, you knew it was Louboutin.
Yes.
If you knew Giuseppe or any of the major designers, say, well, it doesn't matter. Prada, it said their name. It didn't say, oh, it was a copy of something.
Right.
And my shoes said a certain name. It was called Donald J. PLINER.
Yes.
And more interesting is how I started. As I said, I started the business. I sold it. I sold Right Bank, and then I started another business of clothing, and it was called Donald PLINER in the early '80s, and it was primarily leatherwear. And then I started a collection of cashmere and silk knit running outfits that were totally reversible. And it was on the front cover of Vogue. I mean, this was in the early '80s, and unfortunately, I had a partner that wanted to be part of me. And I said to her, as the business grows, I'm going to need further investment. She said, fine. And what happens when you're manufacturing primarily in the Orient, it's called gray goods. And gray goods means you have to buy up front the material before they take the gray and change it to any other color. So it's called gray goods. And the business went from $1.5 million to 5 to 20. I had windows and Bergdorf's at Lord & Taylor. And she said to me, well, it's okay, but I want 15% royalty till 1997. And this was the early 80s. And the reason 97, because she's English, and that's when England had to give up Hong Kong to the Chinese.
Wow.
Well, I went to court 3 times in California, 3 times in New York, and I won each time, but she appealed it. I couldn't fight her any longer. And I had to give her my house, which at that time in Beverly Hills, which I actually bought from Truman Capote. I had to give her my house plus 7 figures in cash. I had my dog, originally an Irish setter called Baby Dow, moved to New York, living in $27 a night hotels. In fact, one night I didn't have enough money because I couldn't get a credit card right away, and I had to go borrow money to get my dog out of the hotel.
Oh my God.
Donald,
let's do one thing. We're going to hold that thought because I want you to go down the list. People are writing this stuff down. Hold that thought, and we'll be right back. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with Donald J. PLINER.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
When it comes to protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. Drive the new 2020 Cadillac XT4, only $399 a month, or the new 2020 XT5, only $429 a month, both for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Or purchase the XT4 or XT5 and enjoy 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, truck accident, car accident? Was someone texting and ran into the back of you, not paying attention? It doesn't matter what it is. Give me a call, Attorney Willie Powles. We'll fix it today. The number is 281-881-2457. Again, that number is 281-881-2457. We'll fix it today. Call Attorney Willie Powles.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. For a limited time, get $16,000 off all in-stock Cadillac 2019 XT5 crossovers and $19,000 off all in-stock 2019 CT6 sedans. Or experience the first ever 2020 Cadillac XT6 Premium Luxury Collection, only $519 with $1 down for 39 months lease. Or purchase and receive 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, this is Cam Hill, and we are back on the Cam Hill Show with Donald J. PLINER. Hey, Donald, let's go back over that. They wanted to know exactly what happened. You had started, you were with a partner, and she wanted just to be with you. Let's start right there.
And this was in the beginning of the 80s, because I had sold the Right Bank stores, and I went into leatherware and knitwear. And one of the things I was doing primarily was I doing a whole collection of cashmere knit and silk knit combined together, and totally reversible running outfits. And no matter what, even in the 70s, I used to carry sneakers, and I always did things from a sport idea. But so the business grew very quickly from $1.5 million to 5 to 20, and they had windows at Bergdorf's, windows at Lord & Taylor, and as the business grew stronger, I said to Josephine, that was her name, I said, you know, I need to expand, and she said, fine, but I wanted 15% royalty till 1997. Went to court 3 times in New York, 3 times in California, 1 each time. She appealed. I couldn't fight her any longer. I ended up giving her my house in Beverly Hills, which I originally bought from Truman Capote, plus almost 7 figures in cash. Moved to New York, living in $27 a night hotels with I had a big Irish setter called Baby Doll, which was the first dog, and then the second dog came, and got a job, started another company finally called Glacé, which was unbelievable, where I had to make the left and right shoes. And the reason it was called Glacé is because I looked in Time magazine, and in the front cover was ice cream. Everybody loved ice cream, so the box looked like a hot fudge sundae on strawberry ice cream. And when you opened up the box, it actually had silver foil paper, so the fact the shoes wouldn't melt. And I was on the front cover, back cover, Neiman's, every single magazine, and they were made primarily in Spain. And at that time, the lira and the peseta had sort of just gone sky high, and the company that owned the company wanted to take the shoes to Mexico. In the meantime, I'm living primarily in Miami. Growing up in Chicago, used to always go to Miami all the time. Anyway, and I had 4 months left of my contract, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't want to make the shoes in Mexico. So for 2 years, I was consulting 1 week a month, and I had a small apartment in New York. And at the end of about a year or so, my brother said to me, because my expenses started exceeding my income, why don't you go out and get some credit cards? And anyway, I had the most beautiful condo in Miami, sold that in 1986, and went out and got 20 bank cards. and got this small apartment. I was paying $25,000 a year in finance charges. I hired a girl 1 day a week because I took a job on the side working for Perry Ellis. So I can hire this girl. So for 5 years, I did everything, only having one girl working for me 1 day a week. And I was about 495,000 in the hole at the end of 5 years. And I was about to close the business, and actually my showroom was actually in my apartment that I expanded on. And this one woman from Nordstrom's offered me a free ad in Vogue, and it was a woven cowboy boot and a woven ballet slipper. And I said to myself, if I can make these shoes on time, I'll be able to be successful. Anyway, I took the business from minus 495,000 in the hole to $100 million. Opened up 6
You got to stop
stores.
right there, Donald. No, you just ran over that part. You were you were in the hole. How much?
495,000. As I said, I was about to close it because I couldn't borrow any more money. And Nordstrom's magnificent woman, Michelle Love, who I've always stayed in contact, offered me a free ad in Vogue. And I said to myself, if I can make these shoes,
Yes.
it was a woven cowboy boot
Mm-hmm.
and a woven ballet slipper, and it was in Vogue, and it was a 2-page spread. In fact, the front cover was the original Mrs. Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, well, I made the shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to take the business from a minus 495,000 in the hole on my own, and took the business from that to over almost $100 million, having 6 stores, Beverly Hills, Houston,
Mm-hmm.
Las Vegas, Miami, and San Jose, and I
Wow.
ran the business. And unfortunately, 2008, 2009 came, the tsunami came,
Yeah.
and again, I never had really true business partners.
Right.
And the business started going down a little bit, like everybody's business, and I was
Mm-hmm.
able to keep it going. And then some people offered me, to buy the business, and we worked for a year and a half, trying to make this deal.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I took it. And the problem was, as I said, I never really had anybody really telling me what I was doing. And part of the selling of the business, I sold my name. We sold my wife's name, and it's very hard sometimes to realize you don't have your own name.
Right.
And I
You
sold
cannot
it, and then
use your own name that you were born with.
right. And I sold it, and I stayed with them till 2015. And the
Mm-hmm.
way they were running the business, I saw that the business it went through a whole different phase.
Yeah.
They changed all the stores and everything like this, and it was something that I realized I was not going to. At the end, the main deal was I was going to make so much money was based on predicated off of profits.
Yeah.
And the way they ran the business, the profits were not going to ever get to my level.
Mm.
So I resigned in 2015, which I should not have done if I had proper counsel.
Mm-hmm.
And I resigned, and then I took a year off. I had a non-compete, and I opened up a gallery in Miami. That's where I have these pillows and everything
Mm-hmm.
like this. It was a 5-color gallery. It was incredible. And then I started all over again in August of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
The most beautiful showroom in New York, right
Yes.
down the street from where my original showroom was.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened up, and I got all this press, PLINER's back, etc. And every store came in. But the fact is that the original company I sold it to, they thought that I went out and did the press, opposed to the press coming to me, because that was part of my limitations. I wasn't allowed
Right.
to.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, the litigation went on and on and on, in Fairchild and Footwear News, Women's Wear.
Mm-hmm.
And so the major department stores would not allow their buyers to buy from me because they were buying Donald PLINER as well, and they didn't go through the litigation. So here I was used to doing, $100 million a year, and all I wanted to do was 10 million and 5 million even, and I could not get past a $1.5 million. It was very difficult making the shoes because the department stores I couldn't get involved with the department stores.
Right.
And eventually I finally got a huge order from Nordstrom's men's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to my Italian factory, do you know how to pack online? Yes, you do, because you can't just put style A in one box you have to separate everything by size because you're pulling size by size. Well, we were supposed to have had the shoes out of Italy in December of 2017, and the shoes were, we put them on a boat and everything like this to sort of save a little funds, and we were supposed to be online in February of 2018, and the shoes were still coming in, and finally, and Blair Underwood was part of the company, and I finally the factories just, destroyed everything, and I
Right.
finally just had to close the business. In fact, it was very difficult because I used my New York apartment for collateral. I used my house for collateral just to keep the business going. My lawyer warned me in August of 2017, please close the business. You're not
Wow.
going to be able to fight these people. And I
Right.
wish I had closed instead of my heart kept it going and my passion kept it going. So we ended up losing both New York apartment, lost our house in LA, and now I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Otherwise, sitting here and sitting here with all this talent.
Right.
And that's what's upsetting. Um, and so it's a very difficult situation.
Yes.
Obviously, as I said, the quarantine has taught everybody, I hope, you
Yes.
know, the Black Matters lives and everything. I think right now, unfortunately, I think some of the protesting has to stop because it's not making the economy any better. And I think we have to figure out how to go back to work. And it's just a shame when you see people walking around without the mask anymore. And they
Wow.
just,
Isn't it?
and especially the young kids now, I've had enough of this. I don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
What happened 4th of July? I mean, look what happened to Houston. I mean,
Yes.
Houston, Florida. I mean, it doesn't matter. And you still,
Mm-hmm.
it just upsets me. I mean, it's frightening in a way because when I take my dogs for a walk, and sometimes with my wife, sometimes with my daughter, and you see everybody walking around with masks most of the time, and that's our new world.
That's our norm. That's our new normal.
Yeah, and yet when you see places where kids are walking around, or now the whole new thing is 18 to 40, where everybody's getting caught with the disease because of these parties they had.
Yeah, the
Now they
COVID
say
parties. Mm-hmm.
that, and now the 10 to 18-year-olds, going back to school, and then you see people just, even on the television, you see people walking around, all with masks, and you always see a couple other people, couldn't care less, and they're
Yeah.
all, we have to wake. It's frightening. It's
It's
just
frightening.
frightening
Yeah.
how it's frightening what's going on. It's frightening, so I have this all combined as one,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's
I
part of
also
my.
want to honor you, though. You didn't mention one thing, that you are probably the only person, probably in the world, that has sold how many shoes overseas
I
here?
remember, I think it was 2009, 2010. I had to go to Italy to accept an award from the Italian government,
Yes.
and I was with Michael Atmore, who was now one of the head publishers at Fairchild.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there to accept the award. I had no idea. I was the largest producer of shoes out of Italy, over 1 million pair of shoes a year. And
Wow.
I had no idea how much business, how much volume I was really doing all the time. Those are some of my Western boots that we did. In
Right.
fact, that one there with the black, white with the brown lizard tip.
Mm-hmm.
When I got married, I was wearing a white suit with a
Mm-hmm.
white T-shirt, and I was wearing those cowboy boots because I
Wow.
always used to wear cowboy boots all the time.
Mm-hmm. I love these.
There's,
I
and
love
that
those
that's
with the, the rhinestones and everything. I love, of course, the ones crystals and everything, diamonds that you have. I love all of those.
and if you notice on the high top, it had a zipper.
Yes.
So the fact that once you got into them, you never had to undo them again. And always they had a little
Right.
bit of elastic on the top because one time I bought a pair of shoes in Paris, and they were a low top boot, and I was in such pain. And it was the best investment I ever made because it made me aware of the fact that why on my shoes I always have elastic, especially on a
Yes,
high top. So when you walk, they walk with you.
they do.
That's why all of my shoes somewhere have a form of elastic. Some of my shoes, no matter
Those are the boots,
what,
guys, that he was talking about.
um, you can see
Mm-hmm.
that the white boot there. That was
Right.
my wedding boot, and then we ended up making them for the stores.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like one of the things about my shoes. They all talk.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
because they have to be comfortable.
I love
And
that.
interesting. This is 40 hours. I probably made over 100,000 pair of these beaded shoes,
Yes.
and maybe got maybe 200 pair back because maybe the bead was incorrectly made. Each
Mm-hmm.
bead is knotted 3 times to go into those shoes.
Mm.
And obviously, if we know Mr. White, you'll see most of his shoes are wearing. I think the only shoes he ever wears are my shoes. And you'll see
Absolutely.
his beaded shoes, my Western shoes. But,
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's worn my shoes now know the difference between what they were and what they are now.
Absolutely. What would you like to leave with the viewers?
Peace and success, and just communicate, please.
Donald J. PLINER, I so appreciate you, my friend. Thank you,
Well,
thank you, thank you for the interview. I
Well,
love
it's my pleasure.
everything you do. And of course, I have the shoes too. I've got some on. I've got several in my closet. I've
Well,
had a
thank you.
lot of people call me and said they have several too. They're comfortable. They're just the way they feel, the way they look. Nobody even has to look at the name. We know that's Donald's.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay.
I appreciate you. Tell Miss Lisa we said hello, and to your little babies over there. I think they ran off, but
Right. Well, yeah, it's because the therapist came in. And
Okay.
They now, the therapist came in, and now Lisa has to sleep. She just had a surgery 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
she was in a car accident 3 years ago, and
Oh.
unfortunately, this is her third surgery. So she's now sleeping downstairs in her hospital bed, and
Okay.
I sleep upstairs.
Okay.
And the therapist came in. That's why the dogs went running.
Absolutely.
In fact, I was supposed to have surgery last week, 2 weeks ago, and I have what's called scoliosis, which is horrible. And so as soon as Lisa's done next month or this month, I'll have spinal surgery. So I'll be really.
Well, we'll have prayers for you, my friend. I so appreciate you, and so thank you. Uh-oh. There they came. I see your baby.
Okay, come here.
Oh, both of them came back. Okay.
Okay.
We're saying bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you, my friend. Tell Lisa we love her. Bye-bye. Thank you for everything. On tomorrow, we have Mika Diamond. You do not want to miss her. Have a great one. Bye.